A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and in our top stories, Barbadians warned again about breaching government's COVID-19 emergency protocols. Educators discuss the common entrance examination. Local nurses prepare for a week of celebrations with a plea for improvements in the service. And in sports, Pakistan hoping to play more cricket in England if the Windies tour falls through.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
In our top story, Barbados COVID-19 czar Richard Carter has issued a stern warning to Barbadians. Speaking with CBC News this afternoon, Mr. Carter says Barbadians have been continuously breaching government's emergency directive and run the risk of reversing the recent relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions.
It only takes one individual to put the entire nation at risk. Over the past 24 hours, I myself have witnessed PSVs transporting passengers without face coverings on drivers, conductors, and passengers. Businesses open in contravention of the directive, some of them selling food and other types of business. Supermarkets and shops not observing the alphabet system in terms of who they allow to enter. Social gatherings of up to a dozen persons without physical distancing. People flying kites in contravention of the law. All of these things I've witnessed over the past 24 hours. The public of Barbados must know that irresponsibility and recklessness by some continues to compromise the health of many and run the risk of a reversal of the relaxation of restrictions that we have seen over the past week.
Well, no new cases have been recorded from among the 18 tests for COVID-19 conducted yesterday. The national total remains at 84. That's 44 females and 40 males. The number of recoveries remains at 57, with 20 people still in isolation. 7 deaths have been recorded. 3,008 tests have been completed by the Besto Santos Public Health Lab so far. In spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, veteran educator Jeff Brooms believes there must be a common entrance exam this year. He expressed the view during the People's Business last evening, which focused on education in the COVID-19 environment. Sharika Griffith reports.
While he agrees the allocation process of the 11+ exam is flawed, veteran educator Jeff Brooms believes it must still be held this year. The former principal of the Parkinson Memorial School explains how it can be done while observing physical distancing protocols.
A school with about 900 children who come there every day. On Common Entrance Day, 100 children are there. We got about 40 different classes. Put 5 in a room. And you can have them separated all over the place. You can have 10 in the hall. You don't have to have all of them bunched together. I am sure with creative thinking, you can organize your school so all the children are taken care of. You know, a classroom that normally seats about 30, 35 can hold 4 or 5.
Mr. Broom says if schools had followed a model of continuous assessment, using marks from classes 2 and 3 to allocate students could also have been an option.
There's been no consistency. The mark in the class 3 child in St. Philip may be a different mark from class 3 child in St. Lucie and St. Michael and on like that. All we need to do, I don't see the major problem. If we were practicing continuous assessment, like I think has been recommended by many people, we will have that is, and you don't have to every paper double mark. But of course, you do sampling, and so you have a better gauge.
Principal of the Darrell Jordan Secondary School, Stephen Jackman, says COVID-19 has highlighted the need for an alternative to the exam.
I come down on the side that this is an exam that has outlived its usefulness. It was designed in a framework where we had more children than we had school places. We now have more places than we have school children. I work in a school that when I started there, it was over 1,100 children. It's now down to 700 or less. So are we still going to hold on to a sacred cow for the sake of holding on to it because we know nothing else?
And Class 4 teacher of the St. Gabriel's School, Joylyn Innes, believes schools must be properly cleaned and children given adequate time to readjust to being in a school setting before they sit the exam.
about a month will give them good time to be there. Yes, the question is who wants to go back into the classroom? Lots of teachers are still fearful of going because you're afraid the children interact with each other, but there's something we have to work out. We have to do the best that we can for our children. And the challenge at this point, I'll repeat, is to keep our children motivated. And the Ministry of Education has to be ready to go in whenever they're ready to call it to go back to school, is to have lots and lots of deep cleaning done so that everyone can be safe.
Prior to COVID-19, approximately 3,500 Class 4 students were expected to sit the exam last Tuesday. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Well, some of the island's teachers and students are still not adequately equipped to utilize and access the G Suite platform for online classes. That assessment from President of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, Marianne Redmond. She said the past week of virtual classes has brought several issues to the fore.
We have in homes with devices, many students are having to share devices with each other and with parents who are working from home. So we're actually having competing uses for the same devices in the household. There's a big problem with appropriate bandwidth, especially in the morning hours when the majority of school children and teachers and businesses and so on are online. And that is making the ministry's mandate of at least 3 hours of synchronous teaching unreasonable and unachievable in our reality.
In a telephone interview with CBC News, the BSTU president stressed the online initiative could not be the replacement for physical classes. She also revealed some teachers have complained about the conduct of some students and their disruptive home environments.
We are having a problem, as reported by some teachers, with discipline of students in the classes. We are having a problem with discipline of adults in the background, in the homes of some of those students while they're online. There's noise, there's cursing. There was a complaint of fight actually breaking out in the background in one household. People walking around in the background while the students are using the video of their computers inappropriately dressed. We have had 2 complaints. The union has had 2 complaints of the intrusion of pornography.
Meanwhile, the Barbados National Council of Parent-Teacher Associations has commended teachers and the Ministry of Education for their efforts to facilitate online classes. While noting there have been a few hiccups, President Sean Gibbs said still gave the initiative a passing grade during a telephone interview with CBC News.
On a point of 1 to 10, I would give them a 7, and the rest, I think the teachers especially are working assiduously to get it all right. We must pause for a minute and recognize that teachers too are parents, just like most of us. And managing at home and managing their class at the same time is very difficult.
Over the next month, UWI Cave Hill students will sit their end-of-year and degree awarding examinations from the comfort of their homes for the first time. Starting today and running until mid-June, students at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus will undergo final assessments for the just concluded semester online or remotely. The process has been made easier for many of them thanks to the generosity of the island's major telecommunications providers. Now, Flow and Digicel have granted a 0 rating for students who access certain websites at UWI Cave Hill on their mobile devices. Principal Professor the Most Honorable Udine Barato has expressed the campus appreciation for the offer. She says it is a testament to the strong corporate partnership between the campus and the telecoms providers, as well as a demonstration of their commitment to investing in the future of the region's young people.
We realized from the time we left the physical classroom environment that it would take a concerted effort to complete the semester with a high level of integrity. I am happy with what has been accomplished so far. The entire process of moving to an emergency online delivery of education from April 6th to 24th, and then delivering the assessments on an online platform from May 11th until mid-June has required significant energy, skill, and commitment from the campus's dedicated employees.
In the meantime, head of campus IT services, Keith Innes, says the agreement took effect last Thursday and it will apply to 15 Cave Hill websites. He explained students who use their data plan on a mobile device to access the resources needed to complete the examinations will not be charged. The Barbados Nurses Association is sending a message to policymakers as it looks forward to life post-COVID-19 for its members. It comes as local nurses join their colleagues worldwide to celebrate Nurses Week as well as Year of the Nurse and Midwife. President Joanna Waterman says the COVID-19 pandemic has thrust the profession into the spotlight, showing how critical nurses are to the functioning of the healthcare system. As such, Ms. Waterman says there are certain things nurses expect going forward.
There is no going back to pre-COVID working conditions of inadequate human and material resources, and certainly no going back to sporadic salary payments, insufficient remuneration and lack of bonuses, inadequate training programs, and lack of advanced practice nursing roles implementation. And we are especially pushing to have the establishment quotas expanded.
Ms. Waterman also says the association is concerned about its members who are at other institutions.
We do have some concerns regarding insufficient training and also insufficient supplies to work with at the geriatric hospital in particular, where there is some dissatisfaction with the ability to work in an environment that is conducive at the moment. So, as we salute all nurses in the healthcare system of Barbados, both public and private, during this unprecedented period, we also ask members of the public, the patients and clients, to recognize that nurses are highly trained professionals, but they often work in very stressful environments.
A post-COVID-19 sustainability plan is being developed for the micro, small and medium-sized business sector in Barbados. Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Commerce Dwight Sutherland says the country must be seen as an innovation hub. He also believes the time has come to lure big businesses to the island.
Persons who can come and innovate, persons with technology and science, design to our country. And indeed, that is how we are going to build global businesses. We need to have Barbados to be seen as an innovation hub. So coming out of COVID, this is the time for a revolution. This is the time where our entrepreneurs must begin to be disruptive. And I know that the government led by the Prime Minister, we are looking at an industrial policy that is focused on innovation. So we indeed are with the times, even though COVID has struck us. We were thinking along these lines pre-COVID, and I know coming post-COVID, we will have some robust system that indeed that can bring back the growth and the investment to this country.
Minister Sutherland, meanwhile, has voiced support for Barbados embracing electronic payments, suggesting it's time to get rid of checkbooks.
Back in 2007, Kenya launched M-Pesa, and that was an e-service transaction for payments. People can use their mobile phone to transfer money. You know, it was a branchless banking system, and what it did was to move most of those persons who we classified as unbankable, you know, the persons within the micro sector ecosystem of the MSME, and those persons, as a result of carrying out transactions online, paying for services online, paying for goods online, being able to transfer money, then they became bankable. And I think that is what is needed in this country first and foremost.
Still to come in the region, Guyana trying to cope with an increase in squatting. But before we get there, here is that tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited.
Insurance the way you want it to be.
Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Hands touch many surfaces and can pick up viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose, or mouth. From there, the virus can enter your body and can make you sick. Co-operators General Insurance, encouraging you to stay home and stay safe. Regional news now. Bahamians abroad are still looking for ways to return home amid the COVID-19 pandemic. While some have already landed on Bahamian soil, others are still waiting. More in this ZNS report.
As Bahamians are being returned home via air from abroad, the dilemma continues for Bahamians that work on various cruise ships, still left floating. Anton Floyd was originally contracted to the Phantom of the Seas in the housekeeping department, but since COVID-19 ceased all cruises, he is being floating on the Independence of the Seas.
Basically, almost coming up on 2 months. Stuck on ship, trying to figure out when it's not going to be. Sad part about it is we are in Bahamian waters and we're so close to home, but really can't hear nothing. No information is getting passed on to us. It's like every other country around us. Everybody's going home, except for us. There's not even a mention of the Bahamas or the Bahamian people that works on the ships.
Last week, ZNS News was able to help Coralie Grant Bethel with getting back on Bahamian soil. After hearing about her story, Floyd and his family are seeking the same faith and reached out to ZNS as they too are in waters off Coco Key, Bahamas.
There's 3 Bahamians on board, 2 from Nassau, 1 from Freeport, Grand Mama. It's very frustrating knowing that you're so close to home, but it's like everybody is getting sorted out except for you.
The Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission is reporting an upsurge in squatting as COVID-19 restrictions have resulted in the suspension of field inspections until further notice. We have a report from HGP TV.
We've received a number of complaints in the period, and I suspect, like I said, because people realize that we are not in the field as normal, they are taking advantage of this opportunity.
Back in 2018, Cabinet had mandated the Central Housing and Planning Authority to conduct a study on squatting in Guyana. The study had been done in collaboration with the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission and other agencies. Figures show that there could be well over 1,500 persons squatting, and that figure does not account for those persons who continue to rebuild on areas previously cleared.
But what we have found is that a number of people are squatting on reserve areas especially. These are areas set aside over the years, either for playfield, for drainage, for expansion of the road network, etc., etc. And in many cases, that's where some of the people go to squat, but also they squat on undeveloped and undivided lands. Across the country, in every region, that's a problem.
The Commission plans to tackle the issue of squatting head-on once its officers can safely go back into the fields.
In Trinidad and Tobago now, over 14,000 applications for relief grants put in place due to the COVID-19 pandemic have been processed so far. But Minister of Social Development and Family Services, Camille Robinson Regis, says the process is being slowed by instances of fraud. More in this TTT online report.
In terms of the Ministry of Finance that is doing the salary relief grant, they have processed, and that grant is for people who pay the NIS. They have processed over 10,000 grants already of the salary relief grant. In terms of the Ministry of Social Development and Planning and Family Services, we have processed in the order of about 4,000 of those grants. But what we have been finding is that people who are applying for rental assistance, there's a lot of fraud coming up in that.
She said they're trying to ensure that the ones who truly need rent assistance get it.
We have had several instances of fraud when we go and check, and that is slowing down that particular grant. because we do not want to pay persons who are trying to defraud the state.